Made with Love by Integral.
So today we have with us Hsiung Blodgett. Amanda is here with us to talk to us about her journey. So she's an intercultural language expert. She's a trainer. She's an author. She has a podcast for kids, a blog. She's just amazing. Let's start off by first breaking down, what is an intercultural language expert, like, for the people out there who don't really know what that means. How would you define what it is that you do?
Right. So I think people usually talk about a language. What's interculture? I think it's a culture inside the language, inside of culture. When we're learning English, we're not just learning English, we're learning about the culture and how we communicate with each other. When we're learning Mandarin Chinese in the US or anywhere you are, you're not just learning the language, but you want to learn the culture inside the language. And how do you convey from the language into the culture you're living in? Because I am currently not in Taiwan or in China. So how do we let people understand who I'm coming from, why I'm saying what I'm saying, what does that mean? And then in English for people who are speaking English. And the English is the same thing, where we see English as a world language of so many people speak language, the same language, but sometimes they don't understand each other very clearly. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do, telling kids, teaching kids or teaching people Mandarin Chinese, but really make them be able to communicate it within a culture.
And do you find that that's something that is, as a concept, do you find that it's hard for people to kind of understand or to grasp? Because when you say learning a language, it's easy, right? Because you just say, I'm learning to say hello and goodbye and thank you, and, how to order things off a menu, right? That's easy. It's something that I could learn on Duolingo or any of these other language apps, so when we bring culture into it, right, and we kind of blend that culture and language together, we're actually talking about the softer, more intangible aspects of it, right? This idea that, for example, I'm Indian and everybody knows about the Indian head nod, when I'm saying yes or I'm saying no, there's an okay, it's culturally, I'm communicating, right? And that's also part of language. So how do you address that in your field?
Right. So that is such an interesting story talked about, because it's like, we have gestures, we have body language, there are so many things, but maybe in this mainstream culture, when you nod, it means, okay, I understand, okay, but behind the scene, maybe this okay, just because in the culture, people don't feel comfortable to tell you no. So their natural response is nodding the head, and then you will think it's yes. But for people who is in or from the culture, they will understand, I think maybe I will get a no later.
Yeah.
Or they will never call you back and say yes, because it's hard for some cultures to say no. I think you can understand that, especially a lot of times in the business world, it's everywhere. But sometimes we need to deliver that. So some kids, they will not say anything, maybe because the culture is like, they will be quiet if they don't agree, if they don't like it.
Yeah.
But sometimes we need to teach kids that, well, but you're in this culture right now. You need to verbalize your feelings, what you want to tell people. Say, I don't like what you do, so can you please stop? So there's so many things we want to tell kids, not just cross-culture. Cross-culture is like, but when it's interculture, we have an intersection. We are connected. We are learning from each other.
Yeah. And you can see that, right? We talk about a lot of this at a corporate level, like you said. There's a lot of conversations that are happening around it. People are obviously there's a long way to go, but there's still a lot of conversation, and we are at some level, whether it's your work with Netflix or corporate companies, they are bringing in more and more cultural experts to help in business worlds in terms of boardroom or making deals or trade agreements, things like that, just to understand cultural nuances. Now, at some level, I find that as adults, we understand the need for intercultural connections at an adult level. But a lot of the times we come across so many different parents who are like, but why does my child need to know that? Why is it important for my child to understand another culture or to be able to connect to a different culture? So how do you address that?
I think it's so interesting when you talk about adults, we feel like we need to learn all that. So for example, when I was working in corporate, a lot of times the executives from Burbank, California would come to visit Taiwan. And there's a very interesting thing. If that's their first time over there, usually the first person they want to talk to before a party or before a meal or before some kind of event, they will involved with food. They will all say, where is Amanda? I want to sit next to Amanda. At the beginning, I was very confused because suddenly, somebody was looking for me. Then what I realized is a lot of times the local people, out of just try to be courteous and also try to be polite, and they want the guests to eat something they have never seen before. And for people from certain area, this is something very foreign to them. So your delicacy or my delicacy to them can be something a little bit scary. So that's just a very small story, and it's really interesting. So that is something, it's what we can learn and we can teach kids, because something we love can be somebody's, I'm not sure if I want to try that. So, but that can hurt a person too. Okay, adults, we can be more understanding. Say, okay, you don't like stinky tofu because you don't like it. The name you think, and the smell is kind of strong. But for little kids or younger kids, they will feel like, this is something I really love. I want to share with you. Why don't you want to try it? So that is another thing. We need to open up the world for the kids at a younger age and let them know that people are similar, but they can be different. But we don't need to, kind of feel bad about it, but we can introduce them something so they can be open-minded to things. For example, introducing baby food. You never give them like 5 different food at the same time. It's always one at a time. We're talking about our own food. Right? And then when they're getting older, we want to tell them, wow, they're international food. So do you want to try this? It smells different. Oh, how about try the second time? How about the third time? Just a little bit. I remember a student while I was living in South America in Ecuador. I was teaching in an international school. Was doing a presentation and about the Lunar New Year, the culture, the interculture, the cross culture, and how we celebrate New Year in different ways. And it was just so wonderful. And then at the end, I asked a question. I said, what do you think why is it important to learn about other people's culture and food? Even food, sometimes a lot of people say, oh, it's so superficial. Oh, always talk about food. But food is a way to connect with people. That's a starter. Yes. So a student said, one time a friend of mine in another country, and then he shared with me wonderful kimchi. And then at the beginning, I think it's very different, but I tried and I just fall in love with it. But then I told him one day, I said, I want to introduce you to my favorite dessert. To say the liche is a dessert. And then he said, I feel that he will be so excited because my mom made it and I brought it to school. And I said, you need to try it. And then he said, he looked at it, he didn't even try. He said, oh, yuck. He said, that really made me feel bad because that's my favorite dessert. We're talking about it's in an international school. Kids are actually open to different cultures. But I think something very important is missing here. It's not just seeing it. It's something we need to connect the kids with the food, with the culture, and also being mindful instead of saying, oh, such a strong response. So that's the thing we want to teach kids at a very young age. Let them understand the differences and similarities. And there's not absolutely no at the beginning, but say, let's be open-minded and see and be curious about what's foreign, what's different, what's really not something I know, and connect with that.
And I think that above all, to be kind. How do you, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say that, I don't think I want to try this today. Right?
Yes.
Our child, share your toys. And he's like, but it's my toy. I don't want to share it. So how do we give the kids the tools to navigate? Because these are actually difficult experienls, right?
Yes.
And for a child, my best friend, but I don't want to eat the food that you give in school. How do they navigate these big challenges for them, right? So I think that the kind of work that you're doing, the work that we're doing, the idea is to break it down, to have these conversations and to make it easy for kids to be able to, like you said, connect with one another, and that's the most important thing, to be able to communicate in a kind and an inclusive way. That's what language learning, so it goes beyond just the words. It's about the tone of voice. It's about language, everything that kind of surrounds it, the body language. When there's kindness in the intent of it, everything else follows.
Totally. I think something is so interesting because what we're talking about here is we would like to create a culture of kindness. We would like to create a culture of curiosity for the kids, I think. And also the most important thing is we want to have a culture of progress. How do we do that? Practice. That's why you have books to look at, all the books you have providing, the multicultural children's books from different places, India, Singapore, Chinese culture, and then now diversity, how people look different from head to toe. And then the books, I introduce languages. Not one book can cover everything. So that's why we need to see people, we would love to see more diverse books or tools or resources for children. So from Integral, I see great, games, free downloads, World Festival kits. These are all amazing resources that people can use. For me, I focus on the Chinese culture. I want people to know about Chinese culture, not just only it's a close culture, like only China, Taiwan, because don't forget, in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, we're talking about people overseas. They're still doing or practicing a lot of Chinese traditions, or people they have been to travel to the Chinese speaking territories, and they brought back their concept of the Chinese culture and Chinese language. We want to share. It's not just one language or one culture. Instead, it is an open source, an open culture for people to learn. And we want people to come in. At the same time, we need to bring our culture out so people can understand. Instead of like, oh, I'm very curious, but the door is never open for me. So we want to open doors for children to be able to have the environment and the opportunity to practice what they are learning or they are curious about.
Absolutely. And, I think that, so for us, when we designed our A to Z of Chinese culture playbook, one of the things that we were very, very clear about was that we wanted to connect with someone like you. One is to ensure that we got the cultural nuances right? Because like you said, so much of the language and so much of what because at the end of the day, we're not representative of Chinese culture, but we did honor it. And we wanted to kind of ensure that, not just using the right words, but also, in the colors, in the way everything was kind of put together. I remember, every illustration, and we've gone back and forth on, many little things, things like the little boy kneeling down, with the feng shui and things like that. There were so many different elements that we really kind of, went back and forth on. And for us, it was really important to kind of bring each detail alive.
Yes.
But I think that what connected us to you than anything else, I think, was this idea of making it, like you said, fun, accessible, simple, inclusive. When I look at what you're doing with Miss Panda Chinese, or what we're trying to do over at Indigrow, that idea is not just kind of hold culture hostage. And the idea is that for everyone, it's to make it fun, to make it easy, to make it simple. And when people are having fun and they're enjoying and they're up and you're sharing yourself, at the same time you're inviting other people in, that's when the magic happens. That's when the actual connection happens. And I think that's something that you do so well. It's amazing how open and generous you are with your time, in which you connect to people, whether they're Chinese or not. Like in terms of, I remember watching some of your videos. How do I, little short Mandarin phrases. And I'm not a Mandarin speaker at all, but, because I've been working with the book and, I'm just learning. Remember you kind of breaking it down from, the pinyin spelling as well as just the pronunciations and, just trying to get it right. And you made it fun. And I think that's for us, because language, culture, all of it can be very, very intimidating. And I think that in today's world, we're so scared of getting it wrong that we don't even want to try. So I think that this idea, just like you said, practice, keep trying.
Yes.
But for that, you need for both. You need for somebody to say, hey, I'm willing to teach, I'm here, I'm willing to share. And you need for the other person to say, I'm willing to learn.
I thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and to work with Indigrow on the book A to Z of Chinese culture. I think it was a great experience. I work with great corporations, great projects, but a lot of times I feel, you're so open to things, and then it's for kids, but I think it's so important because it's for kids. We really want open the book, everything is correct for them. It's all, you probably have heard this, just like learning. For example, piano, when you learn piano, you won't learn it correctly the first time, or you want to learn a language correctly the first time. So you don't need to unlearn it and relearn it again. So that's what we're trying to do. And I feel so wonderful to see Indigrow make sure all the things are correct when you present everything to the children, to the parents, to the educators. I think there's something very interesting when we talk about long-term and a short-term vision. For everyone is talking about, we want to be inclusive, we want to have more diverse books for kids or resources. When we look at a short-term vision, it's more like it's so urgent, we have to do it now. But if we look at long-term, it's a journey. It's a journey of progress. We will make mistakes. Things will go wrong. But you know what? We can correct it. We can add things to it. And we are going to learn a little bit each day. And then in the long run, we see a progress. We see our kids become a world citizen. We see our kids are open-minded to different things. They know how to say no. They know how to say yes, because they know where they can learn from others. When it's only me, it's alone. But when we have you and I, it's a we. So we want to make it a we. So we are not alone. And so we can build a community. And we know how to communicate with people. More importantly, we can connect with different people. And we respect the differences. And we know the similarities. We definitely always have similarities. But when we can grow, well, how can we grow? We grow in differences because we're so different and we learn from each other. That's how we grow. And then that's why we want to open doors to other people instead of say, hey, it's only me. Like when I first got invited to go to a Diwali party, I was thrilled. I mean, I learned about it by books, reading, videos, but when you step into, even before I step into my friend's house, I was like, wow, this is a gorgeous. And to say when we walked in, see all the decorations, the flowers, and then the powder, the rice powder, colorful things, on the floor, and then her beautiful presentation of the authentic Indian food. I mean, that is really why we want to make it a learning experience, not like just reading a book, but we talk about to do. And that's very successful what Integral has been doing, because in every book, it's just not like A to Z, to read A to Z. It is to do, to say, to try, to explore. And for me, that's the same thing. For my book, I also do the same thing. I want kids not just to read a book. I say should be active learning. Oh, can you find something else? Can you listen to the sound? Can you find a word? Or why I call this book Little Bun? Because it has a culture element in there. So there are a lot of hidden messages in there. They're not hidden, but we want to make it so fun so kids are curious. They want to come back for more.
Absolutely. And, on that, so I've been wanting to talk to you about your little one. So obviously, like I mentioned at the beginning, you're an author. So you had the first book, First Mandarin Sounds, and now you have this really special book, which I think is made extra special because, if I'm not mistaken, you co-authored it with your daughter, right?
Yes, yeah, and she's also the illustrator, actually. We're trying to do a fun project because this project is started before COVID. So she's now 17, but we started when she was about 13 years old, 14 years old. So it's a long process, but I'm definitely very happy to share this book with everyone. Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about how it came about? What sparked the Little Bun? And, what was your thought process behind it? And tell us a little bit more about the journey for you.
Thank you. Little Bun, yes, it's actually snack food in Taiwan, in Chinese culture. And you can see the bun stalls, kiosks, everywhere on the street in the morning, or in the afternoon. People sell those things in bamboo cages and steamed or pan fried. They're different kinds. But this one, because we talk about this, and my kids really love this red bean paste-filled buns. And this is one of their favorite food. Every time when they go back to Taiwan, they have to go to different restaurants, different places to have them. So we said, well, then maybe Little Bun, we should try Little Bun. And as you know, I'm raising bilingual children, and raising bilingual children is a journey of emotions. Every day, you go through all kinds of emotions. We're living in a mainstream culture. English is the language. And at home, we try to use Mandarin Chinese, and my children and I. And the thing is, it's a lot of up and downs, especially when they're growing up. There are different things. And I'm the only person who speaks Mandarin at home. So you understand, I also need to make sure everybody can be on the same page. So you talk about emotions. It's so important, not just for language learning, but a lot of even just passing down your heritage culture can be something very emotional too. Because for me, it's very important. I think this is important. They know the culture, they know the language, but for kids, they don't understand. Everyone speaks English at school. When my son, I believe he was 6 or 7 years old, one day he came home, he said, Mom, I will never speak Mandarin to you again. I was like, huh? And he said, Mom, nobody speaks Mandarin, only you. So I just want to speak English from now on. Like, I knew someday I will heard that, but at that time I was like, wow, it came really fast. Talking about the emotional journey, right? That day I was like, so what do I do? How do I keep this? How can we keep moving forward with his heritage language? So little Bun, when we started, it's a journey of our bilingual family story. And I talked to my daughter. I said, what do you think? What are important when we talk about the language, when we visit Taiwan, when we do different things, we lived in different countries, what emotions do you think they're so important we want to share with other kids? Because they're other kids, they're also maybe in a different culture, maybe they're learning another language. What do we need to know? So we kind of collect and try to have a whole collection of words we want to talk about, and then we narrow it down because we want things not so challenging for little kids, but something they can understand. That's where it is, coming from. And we want them to understand what's the action, what's the expressions they have when they feel that way. So for example, if you're happy, you might be laughing, or you might be singing very loudly. So we want to have kids can connect with the story, the little story. And for the Bun, my daughter did a lot of research. Of course, she loves that food, so she looked at different things and looked at the buns and decided how to put the expressions or emotions on the book, on the pictures, the illustrations. When we talk about a dish or a food, actually, all the parents can try this. Ask your child, what's your favorite food? And give it something like, what do you think this food, if this food can talk or do something, what would it do? How about you? So it's not just reading the book, but you say, well, little Bun is doing this. When little Bun is happy, like he sings loudly. How about you? When you are happy, what do you do? So we want to make it interactive reading. A shared reading should be interactive reading, not just a reading, but bring out the story, bring out the feelings of a child. So that's why at the end of the book, I ask questions. How about you? What's the special dish for you? How do you make it? So we want to make it a more action-oriented kind of experience. It's all about the experience. And we want to give kids the experience that they can experience the culture, they can experience their feelings, and they can think about it to reflect on themselves. Sometimes they need a guidance. So a book is a guide. A parent is the best guide for the children. So because from the book, you can go to make something, you can experience something, you can share something, not just read a book, read it with your friend. How about read it with your grandma and grandpa? Hey, grandma and grandpa, what do you do when you're happy? What do you do when you're worried? So we want, again, curiosity. We want kids to be curious.
And that's the power of a book, when you're able to dive into the book, but then go beyond and, like you said, apply it to your life and apply it to your environment and your surroundings and draw those parallels and make those connections. And I think coming back to what we were talking about, noticing the similarities as well as the differences, right? And saying, oh, okay, I do this too, or okay, maybe I do this a little bit differently. To have that conversation of similarities and differences brings it to life. It makes sense for you. How does it make sense to me in my world? And that's, I think, the power of what a book can do.
Yes. So something very interesting is parents are models. We are models for our children. We model for our kids. So what we say, what we do, what we share, they're all absorbing. Kids are natural born learners. That's true. And then when you talk about certain things can be very scary or intimidating, that's because the environment, the learning environment, if the learning environment is open, if it's okay to make mistakes, hey, think about, we always need to learn like a scientist. I always say that. When we learn a language, when we learn a culture, I always say, we need to learn like a scientist. What does that mean? Scientists fail their experiments all the time. That's why we should not be afraid of failing. We should not be afraid of making mistakes. We need to have the words to express that. I'm worried. I'm scared. right now, I don't feel very comfortable doing something. If they don't have the words, they won't be able to express themselves. That's why Little Bun, my new book, a bilingual story about feelings, is a way to convey the words, the expressions, the actions, and also open a discussion with the parents, with the siblings, with the grandparents, with friends.
Because in your life, right? I mean, that's the whole point, because we're going to meet and we're going to have these conversations on a daily basis with every single person that we meet.
Yes.
And a book like Little Bun just provides the tools. It helps our little ones navigate that life.
I think we really want to see more books like this in different languages, so kids can see their language or the language they are learning in a book. We talk about representation, diversity in children's books, but a lot of times we also need to see the language on pages, on screen, so they feel like this is not something so far away from me. Oh, I read Chinese words. Oh, I read French. Oh, I read Japanese. Oh, I see, different words. And they are like, oh, this is really not very far from me. This is actually something very close to me. Oh, my mom also reads something in this language. Oh, I see my friends learning this language at school. So we can be more mindful. We can be even more curious. We can make kids feel like they want to learn something new each day. That's the most important part, because after all, with all the books, like I said at the beginning, no one book can teach everything, but together we can provide them resources to move forward with the culture of progress, with the culture of kindness, with a culture of curiosity we want to create for kids.
Oh, that's fabulous. And I don't think I could have put it any better. So I'm going to stop right here. Thank you so much, Amanda, for your time. It's been an absolutely wonderful, wonderful chat with you. And I wish you all the success with all your future books and everything that you're doing at Miss Panda Chinese. And we'll have the details available on our website as well for anybody who's looking to connect with you. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Akila, for having me. It's such a pleasure. And I also want to wish you the best with Integral and all the resources, wonderful resources you're providing to the parents and educators. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Visit us at integralkids.com for more.